Bang! Bang! Hello everyone, Davey here with another movie review. Seems like I've been in this particular spot for almost like 2 weeks in a row, but here I am to talk about yet another adaptation from the 80s that a lot of people hold dear to their hearts, and it is because of that they develop all this anger, and anger leads to hatred, and hatred leads to suffering. I am talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I believe that more people talked about this movie through the course of its development than almost any other movie that was set to be released this year. I mean, sure, people are talking about Batman vs. Superman right now, as well as the Episode 7 for Star Wars, but it was last year where I think the movie that everybody was really talking about was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Not even Captain America or Guardians of the Galaxy, or even Spider-Man, or Transformers, or any of the bigger tentpole movies that released this summer. It was the Ninja Turtles, and not for the better. It was actually all pretty much negative remarks upon the casting, upon the direction of the movie, and now here is the final result. And I know everybody's just lambasting this movie. It's got this low rating on Metacritic, and people are just tearing it apart. And after seeing the movie, I can definitely say that I kind of liked it. Yeah, I might be in that minority where I came out of the movie and I was like, this is not that bad. It's a little better than just okay, but I'm not going to say it's really good. But I simply just don't understand this hatred. Plot of the movie, Turtles get injected with this mutagen that then has them become Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they must go up against the evil Shredder that threatens to take over New York. Best synopsis ever. Andre, aka Black Nerd, I really like the guy, and I had to give a nod to him, pay homage to him, because he is probably the biggest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan I have ever witnessed. And the plot of the movie, very standard of that of a Saturday morning cartoon. It practically is a Saturday morning cartoon. And that didn't really bother me because we had all these other things about the movie that I really did like, that I felt carried the movie, and that's why it didn't really bother me. But I gotta admit, I'm getting kind of tired of villains always using some major high tower to release something that you know is it's gonna go in a certain direction. You're just like, maybe do it underground this time. Maybe try something different. I mean, it's almost like Shredder and the Lizard from Amazing Spider-Man 2 went to like the same bar, and Lizard told Shredder his plan, and Shredder said, And there is a solid explanation as to why I don't have this hatred that other people do, that hold that dear cartoon, comic, as well as the movies that were released over the 90s, dear to their heart. And that is because I was never a huge Ninja Turtles fan, to be honest. I liked them. I understood them, that they were part of our culture just as much as Transformers were, as Power Rangers were. And so that's what really prompted me to give this movie a chance, and why I have given other properties of the Ninja Turtles, not only in terms of the 90s movies, but also some of the more recent things that they've been doing with the Turtles, such as the new cartoon that's on Nickelodeon, as well as that all CG animated movie that came out back in, I think, 2010. It was called, oh no, not 2010, 2007, around that area, that was called TMNT. And so, in my opinion, I always liked the Turtles, but I was never a huge fan of them. It was between the Turtles and Transformers was where I was at. So if this movie did in fact ended up being a complete piece of shit, then sure, I would have wished that we could have gotten a good movie, but I wouldn't have felt like my childhood was just bastardized, because that was never really a strong part of my childhood. It is for this very reason why I don't mind them changing the origin. At least that's what I believe they did, is that the whole story with April's father that is foreshadowed in the trailers, and his connection to the Ninja Turtles, was not in the original origin of the Turtles. And so for them changing that in this movie didn't bother me whatsoever. I thought it was not that bad, and what really made that part of the movie for me would have to be the Turtles themselves. I think that they really did capture the characteristics and the persona of the original Turtles from not only the comics and the cartoons, but also more importantly, the movies. Because it's a little weird to reference the comics, because the true story behind the Ninja Turtles is that the original comic book that it's based on is actually rather dark and, you know, brooding, and not at all like the colorful cartoon that we got later on. So I'm gonna try to not reference the comics anymore, but they capture the persona of each of the Ninja Turtles rather well, and you see the personality of these turtles flourish throughout the movie. You know, you got Raphael, who's a bit of the rebel, you got Leonardo, who's the leader, you got Donatello, who's kind of the nerd, and you got Michelangelo, who's like the player, he's like the cool kid who thinks he's awesome, and sometimes that gets him into trouble. All those characteristics are here. Now, they are laid down just a little thick at times. Sometimes Donatello is just a little too nerdy with his gibberish, and you're just like, what the hell are you talking about? Raphael comes off as somewhat of a douche. He's always done that. I mean, I remember back to that original 1990 movie, and there were moments where I'm just like, Raph, just chill. And he has his moments here where I'm just like, dude, stop being a douche. And Michelangelo gets to that point where he starts to cross the line, the Bay line, the Michael Bay line, where he starts to become that traditional Michael Bay character that we've seen in plenty of movies. Leonardo is probably the only one that doesn't lay it too thick, and because of that, he ends up being my favorite character out of these brand new Turtles. But fortunately, when you put them together, they have really good chemistry. They made me laugh. They made me like the characters. I never really disliked any of them by the end of the movie. And that thickness, it just gets reeled back in. It's like they restrain one another. Which is funny, because that's kind of one of the themes of the movie, where they have to rely and trust one another to get the job done. And I'm glad that imitated life, or imitated cinematic life, and that proved to be the movie's strongest asset, having these turtles band together to make us like the movie more than what it could have been, because it could have been just a very, very bad movie, and fortunately the Turtles saved it. Now, one of the main worries, if not maybe the main worry that an awful lot of people had with this movie and having Michael Bay's name attached to it, would be too much humans, not enough turtles. Such was the case with the Transformer movies. Not enough Transformers, and too much human drama that we just don't need. I'm happy to say that I believe that the ratio between human and turtle is better than the Transformer movies, and I think that the running time really helps, because this movie is just a smidget over an hour and a half, and that really helps tip the scale in having more screen time with the turtles than with the humans, as opposed to almost 3 hours of that last Transformers movie. Now, I said better. I didn't exactly say good, because we spent a good 15-20 minutes with April O'Neil running around, and Byrne, I can't remember his last name. I do know that he's the camera guy, played by Will Arnett. We spend a good 15-20 minutes with them before we finally see the turtles. And that did make me worry a little bit, but fortunately, when they bring the turtles into the story, they stay for a rather good amount of time, and they never really deviate from the turtles too much to where they don't appear until the climax, like another reptile that I know, a rather giant reptile. And consider this a good thing, none of the human stuff here is necessarily abysmal. I thought it was okay. Let's go ahead and get her out of the way. Megan Fox as April O'Neil. The best word that I can use to describe her in this movie is tolerable. She's tolerable. I'm not gonna say she's good, I'm not gonna say she's terrible, but she's tolerable. I got through the movie having her be in this movie as April O'Neil. An awful lot of people won't, because like I said, they grew up with the Turtles and the cartoons, and that's not April O'Neil. Me, because I was never really that passionate about this property. I don't really care that much, but in terms of her playing that character and her as an actress, I could say that she's tolerable. Yes, she has her scenes that just made me roll my eyes. She does. And not just her, but a couple of moments with the Turtles and some questionable lines of dialogue that the Turtles, as well as some of the humans, are given, are very eyeball rolling worthy. Alright? Trust me, that happens. But I'm happy to say that they didn't happen very frequently. And like I said, there were moments where I looked at Megan Fox and I'm like, you know, you've done worse. Will Arnett, sure, he was fine. I mean, from what I hear, the character that he plays from the cartoon is what's perfect for Will Arnett, because he always plays those type of characters, and that type of character was that type of character, so it suited him just fine. In fact, it was probably the only casting choice that everybody was okay with. William Fichtner, he's William Fichtner. I mean, what do you think he's gonna be in this movie? So there you go. And he too also had some questionable lines of dialogue that are bound to happen in this kind of movie. And one particular player that I want to comment on would be Splinter, who I believe that in terms of a performance, he was good. But I was very surprised to learn that his performance capture was done by Danny Woodburn. And if you guys don't remember, if you've seen Watchmen, he was the little man who was threatening Rorschach inside the jail, and he cut those guys' arms off. And he was that guy. And he plays Splinter in this movie. However, he only does the performance. And he was going to do the voice, but I was surprised to learn that Tony Shalhoub replaced him in terms of the voice. Because when I heard him speak, I'm like, this is not Danny Woodburn's voice, because I know what his voice sounds like, and that is not him. So I was surprised to learn that his voice got edited out as well, because I was aware that Leonardo was performed by one actor, whereas Johnny Knoxville was his voice. And I knew that was the case with that character, and I believe that these are the only two characters where the producers and the director weren't happy with the voice, so they had to hire two other people to do different voices. And I knew about Leonardo, but I did not know about Danny Woodburn and Tony Shalhoub playing Splinter. But I thought that his character was rather cool. Now, his design, I liked it. I didn't get the Asian influence because in terms of his design, because he has the Fu Manchu mustache, and he has his hair tied up, and he looked cool, and I like that they went in a different direction than his original incarnation, where he had like actual eyes. I like that they actually kept the very black eyes. I don't know, there was something about it that I liked. I don't know what it is, but I liked that he had black eyes like a regular rat. And I liked his design, but I didn't understand the Asian influence, because based on the origin of the Turtles as well as Splinter in this movie, he was never around Asia, so I failed to see that. But anyways, that was just my viewpoint. Now, with that, I can segue into what another issue that an awful lot of people had with this movie were the design of the Turtles. A lot of people don't like it. A lot of people don't like it. It gets them pissed beyond belief seeing what Bay has done to these Turtles. And I will admit, they're a little jarring from when I first saw them in the trailers and all that to even their first appearance in this movie. But I gotta be honest, as the movie went along, I started to adapt to their look. Didn't really bother me, and I got accustomed to it. And I was like, yeah, these are gonna be the Turtles that if they do make a sequel or sequels, I'm okay with this design because I am now used to it. And speaking of design, Shredder in this movie. Man, if you guys were worried about Shredder, don't be. He's probably the best in this movie because he is beast. My only little nitpick would be that he kind of feels like a secondary character rather than the big baddie, like the guy behind it all. He feels somewhat of a secondary character. I guess a good analogy would be how Bane felt by the end of The Dark Knight Rises rather than at the beginning. That's kind of how Shredder sort of feels in this movie, but does he kick ass? Yes. There's this fight between him and Splinter. What? It was awesome. I was generally like, whoa, this is getting intense. And while speaking of fights, I thought that there were an awful lot of cool action sequences. I didn't see it in 3D, so I can't comment on that, but I feel like there were certain scenes that were compelling in 3D if I were to have seen it. Didn't see it in 3D because I've been seeing too many 3D movies recently, so I decided to go with 2D. But still, I thought that the action sequences were rather cool, and there were some genuinely engaging ones as well, especially that Splinter versus Shredder scene. Like I said, it has its fair share of problems. There's plenty of eye-rolling moments, whether it be the dialogue or the acting. Some of the CG could look a little too CG to where you can clearly see an actor's eyes going in a completely different direction than where our CG character is. And it does this thing, without getting into spoilers, it does this thing where certain characters kind of just disappear without knowing where they really went because sequel. And I'm like, come on, can you at least have a little bit of resolution to that? But still, I walked out of it saying, hey, I was thoroughly entertained. I liked the Turtles, and this is not as bad as an awful lot of people say it is. So for that, I am giving the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, or the Bay Turtles, a 7 out of 10. But I will admit, it is a bit of a low 7 out of 10 because am I clamoring for a second one? Not necessarily. I also kind of wish we had some more pizza. Can't get enough of pizza. So let me know what you guys thought of the new Ninja Turtles, and feel free to voice your opinions without getting into spoilers, but just voice your opinions, especially if you were fans of the original Ninja Turtles from the 90s to the new cartoon that's out on Nickelodeon right now. And I'll see you guys next time.